Commander Vextel stared at the holographic display floating above his desk. The blue light cast strange shadows across his scaled face as he watched human soldiers move across a battlefield on Earth. His forearms moved quickly over the control panel, replaying the footage for the 20th time that day. The Zephyrian High Command had been watching Earth for 37 years. They studied every species in this part of the galaxy before making contact. It was safer that way. Most species welcomed them with open arms once they saw Zephyrian technology, energy shields that could stop any weapon, ships that moved faster than light, medical technology that could heal almost any wound. But the humans worried him. "Computer, show me the weapon analysis again," Vextel said in his native language. The air shimmered and new images appeared. Human rifles, cannons, and explosives filled the space around him. Other species in the galaxy had moved beyond kinetic weapons thousands of years ago. They used energy beams, plasma bolts, and sonic disruptors, clean weapons that could disable enemies without permanent harm. The goal was always to capture and convert, not to destroy. Humans were different. Their weapons were designed to kill. A human rifle could fire a small piece of metal at incredible speeds. The metal would tear through flesh and bone, causing massive damage. Their cannons shot explosive shells that could destroy entire buildings. Their bombs could level cities. Primitive, Vextel muttered, but his translator caught the uncertainty in his voice. The door to his office hissed open. Lieutenant Zareth walked in, her green skin looking pale under the blue light. She carried a datapad in her lower right hand. "Sir, you asked for the tactical analysis," she said, offering him the device. Vextel took it and began reading. The report made his stomach turn. Human military doctrine was unlike anything they had encountered. While most species fought to establish dominance or territory, humans fought to eliminate threats completely. The report showed examples from human history, wars that lasted for years, battles where humans would rather die than surrender, weapons that could kill thousands of people at once. The humans called it total war. "Look at this," Vextel said, pointing to a section of the report. "They have something called mutually assured destruction. If someone attacks them with their most powerful weapons, they will respond with weapons that could destroy their entire planet." Zareth's large eyes widened. "They would destroy themselves to defeat an enemy?" "It appears so." Vextel set down the datapad and walked to the large window overlooking the Zephyrian capital. Millions of his people lived in the crystal towers below. They had known peace for over 5,000 years. "Sir, there is something else," Zareth said quietly. "Our shield tests," Vextel turned around. "What about them?" "We ran simulations using human weapons against our standard defensive barriers. The results were concerning." She activated her own holographic display. It showed a Zephyrian energy shield, the same type that protected their ships and cities. Then it showed what happened when human weapons hit it. The shield held against the first few shots. But the humans didn't stop firing. They kept shooting over and over until the shield began to weaken. Then they concentrated their fire on one small area until it collapsed completely. "They use overwhelming force," Zareth explained. "Most species fire once or twice, then wait to see the result. Humans fire hundreds of times in quick succession." Vextel felt a chill run down his spine. "What about their nuclear weapons?" "Those are even worse. Our shields can't stop them at all. The energy release is too great, and the radiation would poison everything nearby." The commander walked back to his desk and sat down heavily. The Zephyrian Alliance had brought peace to over 400 worlds. They were the strongest military force in the galaxy. Their ships were faster, their weapons more advanced, their shields impenetrable. But humans fought differently. They didn't care about honor or rules of war. They cared about winning no matter the cost. "Show me their training footage again," he said. The hologram changed to show human soldiers practicing. Vextel watched them crawl through mud, climb over walls, and practice shooting their weapons. But what disturbed him most was their attitude. These humans enjoyed fighting. They smiled when they hit their targets. They cheered when they completed difficult challenges. Fighting wasn't something they did because they had to. It was something they wanted to do. "Computer, show comparative analysis," Vextel ordered. 2 columns of data appeared. On the left were Zephyrian soldiers. They trained for 6 months before being allowed to carry weapons. They learned about negotiation, peaceful resolution, and minimal force tactics. Their goal was always to end conflicts quickly with the least amount of damage. On the right were human soldiers. Some trained for years. They learned dozens of ways to kill with their hands alone. They studied tactics that had been used in thousands of wars. They practiced until violence became automatic. "Sir," Zarath said carefully, "what are you thinking?" Bextel was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his own son, training to be a diplomat. He thought about the peaceful cities across the galaxy. He thought about what would happen if humans developed faster than light travel. "I'm thinking we might have found a species we cannot convert," he said finally. "The High Council will want to make contact anyway," Zarath pointed out. "It's our policy. Our policy assumes that other species want peace." Bextel pulled up more footage of human warfare. "Look at this. Humans fighting other humans for resources, for land, for ideas. They've been at war with themselves for their entire recorded history. Maybe that means they're ready for peace," Zarath suggested hopefully. Bextel shook his head. "Or it means they're very, very good at war." He stood up and walked to a different console. With a few touches, he brought up the formal report template. The High Council was waiting for his recommendation about humanity. Usually, these reports were simple. Observe for a few years, make peaceful contact, demonstrate superior technology, offer protection in exchange for joining the Alliance. It worked every time. But as Vextel began typing, he found himself writing something different. Species designation, human. Planet designation, Earth. Recommendation, maintain observation distance. Do not attempt contact. He paused, his fingers hovering over the keys. In 5,000 years of galactic exploration, the Zephyrian Alliance had never recommended avoiding contact with a species. "Sir?" Zarath looked confused. "Surely you don't mean that." Vextal looked at her, then back at the images of human soldiers. Young men and women who trained every day to become better at killing, who developed new weapons constantly, who fought wars that lasted for decades. "Lieutenant, how many species have we encountered that could threaten our homeworld?" "None, sir." "How many that could damage our ships?" "None, sir." "How many that might choose to fight us instead of joining us?" Zarath was quiet for a moment. "None, sir." Vextal finished typing his report. "Then perhaps it's time we encountered our first." He sent the report to the High Council and turned off the holographic displays. The office became dark except for the lights from the city below. "Do you really think they're that dangerous?" Zarath asked. Vextal looked out at the peaceful city. No walls, no weapons, no soldiers on patrol. His people had forgotten what it meant to be afraid. "I think," he said slowly, "that we're about to find out." Captain Thelnox had been a diplomat for over 200 years. He had successfully made first contact with 47 different species. The process was always the same, and it always worked. His ship, the Peaceful Dawn, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the human solar system. It was a beautiful diplomatic vessel, its crystal hull gleaming in the light of Earth's sun. The ship was designed to look impressive but not threatening, large enough to show advanced technology but clearly not a warship. "Beginning standard approach protocol," announced his navigator Feltak. The young Zephyrian had only been on 3 first contact missions, but he was eager to learn. Thelnox settled into his command chair and activated the communication systems. "Computer, begin recording. First contact log, species designation, human attempt number 1. The plan was simple. Approach their planet openly, disable their primitive communication systems to get their attention, then broadcast a message of peace. Once the humans realized how advanced Zephyrian technology was, they would be eager to talk. It worked every time. "Sir, we're picking up multiple signals from the 3rd planet," Feltak reported. "Radio waves, primitive satellite transmissions, and something that looks like early quantum communication attempts. Typical for their level of development." Thelnox nodded. "Begin jamming their communications. We need their full attention." The ship's computers reached out across space and blocked every signal going to or from Earth. Suddenly, every radio, television, internet connection, and satellite went silent. Billions of humans found themselves cut off from their electronic world. "Perfect," Thelnox smiled. "Now they know we're here. Feltak, move us closer to their planet. Let them get a good look at our ship." The Peaceful Dawn glided through space toward Earth. Its shields shimmered with energy, showing off Zephyrian defensive technology. The hull itself began to glow, making the ship visible even in daylight. "Sir, we're receiving multiple transmissions from the planet. the communications officer, Yelra, announced. They're trying to contact us on dozens of different frequencies. Excellent. Let them try for a few minutes, then we'll respond. The anticipation makes them more cooperative. But as Thelnox watched his displays, something felt wrong. Instead of the usual panic and confusion he expected, the signals from Earth seemed organized, coordinated. Yelra, what exactly are they transmitting? It's hard to translate, sir, but it appears to be tactical information. Grid coordinates, unit positions, weapon status reports. Thelnox frowned. Weapon status? Show me their surface activity. The main screen changed to show Earth from space. At first, everything looked normal. Cities, oceans, clouds. But as the computer enhanced the image, Thelnox saw something that made his blood run cold. Military units were moving all over the planet. Ships were leaving ports and taking positions in the oceans. Aircraft were taking off from hundreds of airfields. Ground forces were moving to high points and defensive positions. Sir, Feltok said nervously, I don't think they're confused by our presence. I think they're preparing to fight us. Impossible, Thelnox said, but his voice lacked confidence. They can't hurt us. Our shields can stop anything they have. Sir, we're being targeted, Yelra announced suddenly. I'm detecting multiple radar locks from the surface. And, sir, I'm reading massive energy buildup from several locations. On the screen, lights began appearing all across Earth. Not city lights, but the bright flares of rockets launching. Nuclear missiles, Feltok whispered. Sir, they're shooting nuclear missiles at us. Thelnox jumped to his feet. Raise shields to maximum. Evasive maneuvers. The peaceful dawn shuddered as its energy barriers came to full power. Around them, space began filling with human weapons. Hundreds of missiles streaked up from Earth's surface, their nuclear warheads glowing like tiny suns. This is insane, Thelnox muttered. We just wanted to talk to them. The first wave of missiles reached the ship. Most were stopped by the shields, their nuclear explosions creating brilliant flashes of light. But the humans didn't stop firing. More missiles kept coming. Shield strength down to 80%, Feltak reported. Sir, they're not giving us time to recharge. Open a communication channel, Thelnox ordered. I'll explain that we come in peace. Channel open, sir. Attention, people of Earth. This is Captain Thelnox of the Zephyrian Alliance. We mean you no harm. We come seeking peaceful contact. The response came immediately in heavily accented English. Alien vessel, you have committed an act of war by jamming our communications and entering our space without permission. Surrender immediately or we will destroy you. Thelnox stared at the speaker in shock. Act of war? We were just trying to get your attention. Sir, more missiles incoming, Yelra announced. And I'm detecting small craft launching from several locations on the planet. The captain looked at his tactical display. Dozens of human spacecraft were rising from Earth. They were primitive compared to Zephyrian ships, but there were so many of them. Those look like military fighters, Feltak observed. Sir, I think they actually plan to attack us with those. With chemical rockets and kinetic weapons. Thelnox couldn't believe it. Don't they understand how outmatched they are? The human fighters reached the area around the peaceful dawn and immediately opened fire. Streams of bullets and small missiles struck the ship's shields. Individually, the weapons were harmless, but there were hundreds of fighters all shooting at once. Shield strength down to 60%, Feltak announced. Sir, they're concentrating fire on specific areas. They're trying to overload our defenses. This is madness, Thelnox said. Computer, analyze human tactics. The ship's artificial intelligence studied the attack patterns and displayed its findings. The humans weren't just shooting randomly. They were using coordinated attacks, focusing their fire on weak points in the shields. When one area weakened, they would concentrate everything on that spot. Sir, we need to leave, Yeltak urged. Shield strength is down to 40%, but we haven't made contact yet, Thelnox protested. This is all a misunderstanding. Another wave of nuclear missiles hit the ship. The shields flickered and sparked. Warning alarms began sounding throughout the bridge. Sir, I'm detecting something new, Yelra said urgently. The humans are firing some kind of electromagnetic pulse weapons. They're trying to disrupt our electronics. That's impossible. How would they know our technology uses crystal-based computing? I don't know, sir, but it's working. I'm getting system failures across the ship. Thelnox watched in horror as his beautiful diplomatic vessel began breaking down under the human assault. These primitive beings with their crude weapons were actually damaging a ship that could cross the galaxy in days. "Captain," Feltak shouted. "Human fighters incoming on attack vector." "They're not stopping." On the screen, Thelnox could see human pilots flying directly at his ship. They showed no fear, no hesitation. They were willing to ram their tiny craft into a vessel 1,000 times larger. "They're insane," he breathed. "Sir, we have to jump to hyperspace," Yelra pleaded. "The shields won't hold much longer." Thelnox looked around his bridge. His crew was terrified. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. The lights flickered as power systems struggled to maintain the shields. "But the protocol," he said weakly. "We're supposed to establish peaceful contact." "Sir, they're shooting nuclear weapons at us," Feltak pointed out. "I don't think they want peaceful contact." Another massive explosion rocked the ship. More human fighters swarmed around them, firing continuously. On the surface of Earth, more missiles were launching. "Sir, the humans are transmitting again," Yelra announced. "Put it through." The same voice came through the speakers, calm and determined. "Alien vessel, this is your final warning. Leave our system immediately or we will destroy you." Thelnox looked at his tactical display. More human ships were launching from Earth. His shields were down to 20%. His beautiful diplomatic vessel was being torn apart by beings who had barely learned to leave their own planet. "Helm, prepare for emergency jump to hyperspace," he ordered quietly. "Yes, sir. But stay within sensor range. We need to observe what they do next." The Peaceful Dawn activated its hyperspace engines and vanished from the battle. Behind them, human fighters continued patrolling the area, making sure the aliens were really gone. In his captain's chair, Thelnox sat in stunned silence. In 200 years of diplomacy, nothing like this had ever happened. Species were supposed to be impressed by Zephyrian technology. They were supposed to want protection and guidance. They weren't supposed to shoot first and ask questions later. "Sir, what do we tell the High Council?" Feltak asked. Thelnox thought about his report. How could he explain that a primitive species had damaged a Zephyrian ship? How could he describe humans who would rather fight than talk? "Tell them," he said slowly, "that we may have a problem." The emergency session of the Zephyrian High Council had been going on for 6 hours. Representatives from 400 worlds sat in the Great Crystal Chamber, their voices echoing off the walls as they debated what to do about the humans. Admiral Kethra stood at the center of the chamber, her red uniform marking her as the Alliance's highest military commander. Around her, holographic displays showed the damaged Peaceful Dawn and recordings of the human attack. "This is unprecedented," declared Councillor Morden from the Arcturus sector. "In 5,000 years, no species has ever attacked a Zephyrian diplomatic vessel." "They didn't know we were diplomatic," argued Councillor Yarel from the Vega system. "Perhaps if we try again with proper introductions?" Admiral Kethra's voice cut through the debate. "Councillor, they launched nuclear weapons within minutes of detecting our ship. They didn't ask questions. They didn't demand identification. They simply started shooting." The chamber fell silent. On the main display, footage played of human missiles streaking through space toward the Peaceful Dawn. The sight still shocked many of the council members. "Admiral," said High Councillor Zentar, the ancient leader of the Alliance, "explain to us how a primitive species managed to damage one of our ships." Kethra activated a new hologram. "The humans used tactics we've never encountered before. Most species fire their weapons in careful, measured attacks. They aim for specific targets and wait to see the results before firing again." The display showed typical alien warfare. Precise energy beams fired one at a time, with pauses between shots. "Humans don't fight that way," Kethra continued. "They use what they call overwhelming firepower. They fire everything they have all at once continuously." The display changed to show the human attack. Hundreds of missiles and thousands of fighter craft all attacking simultaneously. The sheer volume of fire was staggering. "Our shields are designed to stop advanced energy weapons," the Admiral explained. "They can absorb enormous amounts of directed energy. But humans use kinetic weapons, physical projectiles that create impact damage. When hundreds of these weapons hit the same spot repeatedly, they can overload our defensive systems." Councillor Thelvan from the Rigel colonies raised a concern. "Surely our weapons are superior to theirs." "In individual power, yes," Kethra admitted. "But humans have something else. Look at this." The hologram showed human pilots flying their fighters directly at the much larger Zephyrian ship. They showed no fear, no hesitation. "They're willing to die," she said simply. "Not just willing. They seem eager to sacrifice themselves if it means stopping an enemy. We've never encountered anything like this level of commitment." "But why?" asked Counselor Morden. "What could drive them to such extremes?" Kethra brought up new intelligence reports. "Our analysis of human history shows they've been at war constantly. Not just between different planets or systems. They fight each other on the same world. Sometimes for resources, sometimes for territory, sometimes just for ideas." The council members looked disturbed. Most civilized species had ended warfare within a few centuries of developing advanced technology. "They've had over 50 major conflicts in just the last 100 years, Kethra continued. "They've developed weapons that could destroy their entire planet. And they've actually used them on each other." "Impossible," breathed Counselor Yarel. "No species would risk destroying their own world." "Humans would," Kethra said grimly. "They have a military doctrine called mutually assured destruction. If someone attacks them with planet-killing weapons, they will respond with the same, even if it means destroying both civilizations." The chamber erupted in shocked conversation. The idea of mutual annihilation was incomprehensible to most Alliance species. High Counselor Zentar raised his hand for silence. "Admiral, what is your assessment of the threat level?" Kethra paused before answering. "Sir, in my opinion, humans represent the greatest military threat the Alliance has ever faced." "Greater than the Void Wars?" asked Counselor Thelvon. "The Void Wars were fought against an enemy that wanted to conquer us," Kethra replied. "Humans are different. They don't want to rule us. They want to eliminate threats completely." She brought up more footage from Earth. "Look at their military training. Other species train soldiers to capture enemies, to establish control, to minimize casualties. Human soldiers are trained to kill as efficiently as possible. The images showed human warriors practicing with knives, learning to fight with their bare hands, studying tactics that maximized enemy deaths. They have entire military units dedicated to what they call special operations," Kethra continued. "These forces specialize in infiltration, sabotage, and assassination. They can operate behind enemy lines for months without support." "Barbaric," muttered Counselor Morden. "Effective," Kethra corrected. "Sir, if humans develop faster than light travel, they could pose a threat to every world in the Alliance. Then we stop them," suggested Counselor Jarl. "A preemptive strike before they advance too far." "With what?" Kethra asked. "Our ships are faster and more advanced, but humans have shown they can damage our technology. Their weapons are crude but effective. And sir, there are 8 billion of them." The number hung in the air like a physical weight. Most Alliance worlds had populations in the millions. Some of the larger colonies had tens of millions. But 8 billion individuals, all with the human capacity for violence. "Furthermore," Kethra continued, "humans reproduce much faster than we do. Their population has doubled in just the last 50 years. If we don't act soon, there could be twice as many of them. So what do you recommend?" asked High Counselor Zentar. Kethra looked around the chamber at the representatives of 400 peaceful worlds. "Sir, I recommend we establish a quarantine zone around their solar system. No ships in or out. We monitor them carefully and prepare for the worst. And if they develop interstellar travel anyway, then we hope we can find a way to coexist with a species that sees violence as the solution to every problem." The council debated for another 2 hours. Some members wanted to try peaceful contact again. Others suggested immediate military action. A few proposed simply pretending humans didn't exist. Finally, High Counselor Zentar called for order. "We will vote. All in favor of Admiral Kethra's quarantine proposal?" Most hands rose. The vote was close, but the quarantine passed. "Very well," Zentar announced. "We will establish a perimeter around the human solar system. Any human vessel that attempts to leave will be turned back or destroyed." As the council session ended, Admiral Kethra remained behind to study the intelligence reports. Something bothered her about the human military data. There were references to units that didn't appear in any organizational charts, missions that had no official records, soldiers who seemed to vanish from all documentation. She called up her aide, Commander Vextal, who had originally recommended avoiding human contact. "Commander, I need you to analyze something for me," she said. showing him the mysterious references. "What do you make of these?" Bextel studied the data for several minutes. His expression grew more troubled as he read. "Admiral, these appear to be references to covert operations. Military actions that are kept secret even from their own people." "What kind of actions?" "Assassinations, sabotage, intelligence gathering." "But sir, there's something strange about the reports. These operations seem to be conducted by individuals or very small teams, and the results suggest capabilities far beyond what we'd expect from primitive technology." Kethra felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying humans have military forces we haven't detected?" "I'm saying, sir, that we may not understand human warfare as well as we think we do." She stared at the data, trying to piece together the puzzle. If humans had secret military units, what were they capable of? How many of them were there? And most importantly, if the Alliance established a quarantine around Earth, would they even know if these mysterious forces had already left the planet? "Commander, I want you to focus all our intelligence efforts on identifying these covert units. I need to know everything about them." "Yes, sir. But Admiral, what if they're already out there?" Kethra looked up at the star map showing Alliance territory. 400 worlds, trillions of citizens, all protected by technology that humans had already proven they could damage. "Then," she said quietly, "we may have already lost this war before it even started." Outside the council chamber, ships were already moving to establish the quarantine zone around Earth. But deep in the intelligence archives, Zephyrian analysts were beginning to uncover references to human military capabilities that would make their previous fears seem insignificant. The Alliance thought they understood human warfare. They were about to discover they had only seen the beginning. Intelligence analyst Kelsara had been staring at the same data for 3 days. Her eyes hurt, her head ached, and she was beginning to question her own sanity. The human military records made no sense. "Computer, cross-reference human military unit designations with combat operations," she said for the 100th time. The holographic display showed standard human forces, Army divisions, Navy fleets, Air Force squadrons, all properly documented with clear command structures and detailed equipment lists. But scattered throughout the records were references to other units, units that seemed to appear and disappear from official records. Operations that had no paper trail, soldiers who existed in some documents but not others. Delta Force, she read aloud. Navy SEALs. Special Air Service, Rangers, Green Berets. The names meant nothing to her, but they appeared in connection with some of the most successful human military operations. Her colleague, Analyst Morex, looked up from his own workstation. "Still working on the ghost units?" "They're not ghosts," Kelsara insisted. "They're real. Look at this." She brought up footage from a human conflict 20 years earlier. "Watch carefully. Here's a fortified enemy position. It has concrete walls, guard towers, electronic sensors, and over 200 defenders." The video showed an impressive military installation. Morex nodded. It would take thousands of soldiers to capture something like that. According to the records, it was taken by 12 men. 12. That's impossible. Kelsara switched to another view. The attack happened at night. Watch what happens. For several minutes, nothing seemed to change in the video. The guards walked their patrols. Lights moved across the compound. Everything looked normal. Then suddenly the lights went out. Power failure? Morex guessed. No, someone cut the power. But watch the guard towers. In the darkness, tiny flashes of light appeared in different locations around the compound. Each flash lasted less than a second. What was that? Gunfire, but with sound suppressors. The guards in the towers are being eliminated one by one. More flashes appeared throughout the compound, but there was no return fire, no alarms, no signs of a major battle. Just brief moments of light in the darkness. 27 minutes, Kelsara said as the video continued. That's how long it took 12 humans to neutralize over 200 enemies and capture the entire facility. Morex stared at the screen. How? That's what I've been trying to figure out. She pulled up more records. These Special Forces units operate completely differently from regular human military. They use stealth instead of overwhelming firepower. They attack at night when their enemies can't see them. They move without making sound and kill without being detected. But how do they avoid enemy sensors? Even primitive detection equipment should spot them. Kelsara had been wondering the same thing. I think it's because they don't use advanced technology. Look at their equipment lists. The display showed weapons and gear used by human special forces. Compared to regular military equipment, it looked almost primitive. No energy weapons, no electronic targeting systems, no powered armor. They use knives, she said in amazement. Actual blades for close combat. Their rifles fire simple metal bullets. Their communication systems are so basic they're almost invisible to electronic detection. Why would they choose inferior equipment? Because inferior technology is harder to detect, Kelsara realized. Our sensors are designed to spot energy signatures, electronic emissions, and advanced materials. These humans have deliberately chosen weapons and equipment that our technology can't easily track. She brought up another file. Look at this mission. A human special forces team infiltrated an enemy city, eliminated a specific target, and escaped without anyone knowing they were there until morning. How many men? 2. Morek shook his head. 2 soldiers penetrated an entire city's defenses? Not soldiers. The humans have a different term for these operatives. They call them operators. Kelsara had been studying human language, trying to understand their military terminology. The more she learned, the more disturbed she became. Regular human soldiers are trained to fight in large groups using heavy weapons and armor. But these special forces operators train for years to work alone or in very small teams. They learn to move silently, to hide in plain sight, to kill without making noise. She showed him training footage of human special forces. The video was grainy and incomplete. Most of their training was classified even from other humans. They practice something called close quarters combat, she explained. Fighting in small spaces with knives and hand-to-hand techniques. They learn to kill people in seconds using nothing but their hands. Barbaric, Morex muttered. Effective, Kelsara corrected. They also study what humans call psychological warfare. They use fear as a weapon. She pulled up reports from survivors of special forces operations. The few enemies who survive encounters with these units often suffer complete mental breakdown. They become afraid to fight, afraid to sleep, afraid to be alone. What do they do to cause such fear? Kelsara had been trying to understand that herself. From what I can determine, it's not what they do, it's how they do it. These operators can appear anywhere, anytime, without warning. They can eliminate targets that should be impossible to reach. Guards wake up to find their companions dead in the next room, killed silently while they slept. The analysis continued for hours. The more data they reviewed, the more terrifying the picture became. Human special forces weren't just elite soldiers. They were something entirely outside normal military understanding. Computer. Estimate total number of human special forces personnel, Kelsara requested. Insufficient data for accurate calculation. Estimated range 50,000 to 200,000 individuals. Morex looked shocked. That many? It gets worse, Kelsara said grimly. These numbers represent only the units we can find references to. Human special forces operations are highly classified. We may be seeing only a fraction of their actual capabilities. She brought up a map of Earth. Every major human nation has multiple special forces units. Some are designed for specific environments: underwater, mountain, desert, Arctic. Others specialize in particular types of missions: hostage rescue, assassination, sabotage, intelligence gathering. And they're all trained to operate independently? Not just independently, invisibly. Kelsara highlighted key points on the map. These units can insert into enemy territory through methods our sensors can't detect. They travel by primitive aircraft, small boats, or even on foot. They carry only basic equipment that doesn't create electronic signatures. But surely our advanced detection systems are designed to spot advanced threats, Kelsara finished. A human special forces operator using World War II-era equipment would be almost invisible to our sensors. We're looking for energy weapons and powered armor. They're using knives and camouflage paint. The implications were staggering. The Zephyrian Alliance had established a quarantine around Earth to prevent humans from spreading into the galaxy. But if human special forces could operate undetected, Analyst Kelsara to Admiral Kethra, she said, activating her communication device. Admiral here. Sir, I need to brief you immediately on human special forces capabilities. The situation is worse than we thought. How much worse? Kelsara looked at the data surrounding her. Files on Navy SEALs who could hold their breath underwater for impossible lengths of time. Army Rangers who could march for days without rest. Delta Force operators who seemed to vanish and reappear like ghosts. Sir, what if I told you that humans might have military units capable of infiltrating Zephyrian space without our knowledge? There was a long pause. I'd say that's impossible. Sir, I think they may have already done it. Another pause, longer this time. Report to my office immediately. Bring everything you have. As Kelsara gathered her files, Morex asked quietly, "Do you really think human special forces could be operating in Alliance territory?" She thought about the training videos she'd watched. Humans learning to survive in any environment, to adapt to any situation, to complete their missions no matter the obstacles. Morex, these operators trained to infiltrate the most secure facilities on their own planet. Facilities protected by humans who understand human tactics and capabilities. How much harder would it be for them to fool aliens who don't understand humans at all? But they don't have faster-than-light travel. They don't need it, Kelsara realized. They just need to get aboard someone else's ship. The thought sent chills through both analysts. In the past year, thousands of alien vessels had passed through human space for research and observation. Cargo ships, scout vessels, even diplomatic craft like the Peaceful Dawn. Any one of those ships could have carried human special forces operators into the galaxy. Operators trained to hide, to wait, to strike when least expected. Computer, Kelsara said urgently, compile all data on human special forces capabilities and prepare for immediate transmission to Admiral Kethra. As the computer worked, she stared at the star map showing Alliance territory, 400 worlds, protected by technology and military doctrine that had worked for 5,000 years. But those defenses were designed to stop conventional enemies. What happened when the enemy didn't follow conventional rules? Admiral Kethra sat in the emergency war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing every corner of Alliance space. 3 weeks had passed since analyst Kelsara's briefing about human special forces, and the Admiral hadn't slept well since. Report, she ordered as her senior staff filed into the room. Commander Vextal stepped forward, his usually calm demeanor showing signs of strain. Admiral, we've completed our analysis of all vessels that passed through human space in the last 2 years. Over 3,000 ships from 90 different Alliance worlds. And, sir, we can't account for the activities of any of them during their time near Earth. Standard procedure only requires ships to report their arrival and departure. What they do in between is not monitored. Admiral Kethra felt her stomach drop. Are you telling me that human special forces could have infiltrated any of those ships? It's possible, sir. Human special forces are trained in what they call unauthorized vessel boarding. They can attach to ships, enter through maintenance ports, or even hide in cargo containers. Intelligence Director Zalteth activated another display. Admiral, it gets worse. We've been monitoring human communications since the quarantine began. There are references to something called Operation Starfall. What kind of operation? We don't know. The communications are heavily encrypted and use code words we haven't been able to decrypt, but the timeline suggests it began shortly after our first contact attempt. Admiral Kethra studied the data. Show me what we do know. The operation appears to involve small teams, possibly just 2 to 6 individuals each. They're using equipment that produces no electronic signatures. And, sir, the few transmissions we've intercepted suggest these teams are already in position. Position where? Throughout Alliance space. The war room fell silent. Admiral Kethra looked at the star map showing 400 Alliance worlds. If human special forces were already out there, how is that possible? She asked. We've had ships monitoring the quarantine zone. Nothing has left Earth since we established the perimeter. Commander Vextal cleared his throat. Sir, our monitoring focuses on detecting ships leaving Earth's gravity well. But what if the humans never intended to leave in their own ships? Explain. Human special forces specialize in insertion behind enemy lines. On their own planet, they often infiltrate enemy territory by hiding on enemy vehicles. What if they applied the same technique to our ships? Admiral Kethra stared at him. You're suggesting they've been hiding aboard our own vessels? It would explain how they could penetrate the quarantine without detection. A small team of operators using primitive equipment could hide in a cargo bay or maintenance section for months without being detected by our sensors. Director Zalteth nodded grimly. Our ships aren't designed to detect stowaways, sir. Our internal sensors look for energy weapons, electronic devices, and alien life signs that match known species. Humans using basic equipment and staying in shielded areas could remain invisible to our systems. But how would they survive? Life support, food, water. Human special forces are trained to survive in hostile environments for extended periods, Vextal explained. They can live on minimal rations, recycle their own water, and slow their metabolism to reduce oxygen consumption. Some units can survive for weeks with supplies that would last a normal person for days. Admiral Kethra began pacing around the holographic star map. If this is true, if humans have infiltrated Alliance space, what are they planning? Unknown, sir. But based on human military doctrine, we can make some educated guesses. Director Zalteth brought up files on human warfare. Humans don't just fight to win battles, sir. They fight to win wars. Their special forces operations are typically preparatory, gathering intelligence, identifying targets, positioning assets for future action. What kind of targets? Critical infrastructure, command and control systems, key personnel. The director paused. Sir, if I were planning a human special forces operation against the Alliance, I would target our communication networks, military command centers, and political leadership. The implications hit Admiral Kethra like a physical blow. They're preparing for war. It appears so, sir. The question is whether they're planning a preemptive strike or preparing defenses in case we attack Earth. Does it matter? Either way, we have hostile forces operating in Alliance territory. Commander Vextal brought up new intelligence. Admiral, there's something else. We've been analyzing reports of unusual incidents throughout Alliance space. Equipment failures, communication disruptions, personnel going missing. Show me. The holographic display highlighted dozens of locations across Alliance territory. 3 weeks ago, a critical communication relay in the Centauri system went offline for 6 hours. Engineers found no explanation for the failure. Mechanical problems happen, Admiral Kethra pointed out. Yes, sir. But 12 days ago, a similar incident occurred in the Vega system. Then 5 days ago, another in the Arcturus sector. The pattern is spreading toward the core worlds. Admiral Kethra studied the pattern. It looked random at first, but there was an underlying logic to it. They're testing our response times. That's our assessment, sir. Someone is probing our communication networks, learning how quickly we can detect and respond to system failures. And the missing personnel? Director Zalteth highlighted different locations. 17 individuals across 12 worlds have disappeared in the last month. All were either military officers, intelligence analysts, or government officials with access to classified information. Kidnappings? No ransom demands. No political statements. The individuals simply vanished. In some cases, there were no signs of struggle. They left their homes or offices and were never seen again. Admiral Kethra felt cold dread spreading through her body. Human Special Forces. It fits their operational patterns, sir. They specialize in what they call high-value target acquisition. They can identify, track, and capture specific individuals without leaving evidence. But why take our people? Intelligence gathering, Vextal suggested. Humans would need information about our military capabilities, political structure, and technology. Captured personnel could provide that information. Through interrogation, humans have developed sophisticated techniques for extracting information from prisoners. Some methods cause no physical harm but are psychologically devastating. Admiral Kethra stopped pacing and faced her staff. Are you telling me that human special forces have been operating in Alliance space for weeks, gathering intelligence and capturing our people, and we've only just figured it out? Yes, sir. How many teams could they have deployed? Unknown. Based on the incidents we've identified, we estimate between 20 and 50 small teams scattered throughout Alliance territory. And we can't detect them? Our sensors aren't designed for this type of threat, sir. Human special forces use equipment and techniques that are specifically designed to avoid advanced detection systems. Admiral Kethra looked at the star map again. 50 teams of human operators, each trained to survive alone in hostile territory, each capable of devastating sabotage or assassination operations. What do you recommend? We need to completely revise our security protocols, Director Zalteth said. Institute physical searches of all vessels, establish new detection systems designed to find primitive equipment, and increase security around critical facilities. How long would that take? Months, sir. Maybe years. We don't have years. Admiral Kethra made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Open a communication channel to Earth. Sir? Commander Vextel looked shocked. You heard me. I want to speak directly with human military leadership. But sir, the quarantine protocols. The quarantine has already failed. Human forces are operating throughout Alliance space. It's time to try a different approach. The communication systems activated, sending a signal across space to Earth. For several minutes, there was no response. Then a voice came through the speakers, speaking clear English. "This is General Sarah Chen, United Earth Defense Force. Who am I speaking with?" "General Chen, this is Admiral Kethra of the Zephyrian Alliance. I believe we need to talk. I'm listening." Admiral Kethra took a deep breath. "General, we know about Operation Starfall. We know your Special Forces teams are operating in our territory. The question is, what do you want?" There was a long pause. When General Chen spoke again, her voice was different, more serious. "Admiral, what we want is simple. We want to be left alone. Your people came to our system uninvited, disabled our communications, and ignored our warnings. We responded appropriately, by infiltrating our space, by ensuring our survival. Admiral, you have 400 worlds and technology we can't match. We have one world and 8 billion people who refuse to be conquered. Our Special Forces teams aren't there to attack you. They're there to make sure you can't attack us without consequences." Admiral Kethra understood. Mutually assured destruction. Exactly. If you try to destroy Earth, we'll make sure you lose something important too. And if we leave you alone, then our teams will complete their missions and return home. No one gets hurt, and both our civilizations continue to exist. Admiral Kethra looked around the war room at her shocked staff.